Artificial intelligence is already taking over. From voice-activated virtual assistants to self-driving technology, not to mention breakthroughs in medicine. AI has been the force behind the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's transforming every sector of society. Along with these developments comes concern that technology is on the verge of displacing millions of workers.
Robots and automation are about to leave controlled environments like factories and warehouses and enter into unstructured environments like schools, our highways and streets, our hospitals. In that transition, robots and automation are going to start to affect lots of new sectors of the economy.
As algorithms continue to become faster and more efficient at processing information and solving complex problems, they're starting to outperform human beings, making our jobs redundant and replaceable. The fear is real here in Las Vegas, home to thousands of casinos, hotels, restaurants and bars. Among them, the Tipsy Robot. It's not your conventional drinking establishment. Two metallic arms are fast at work, mixing, shaking, and creating an array of cocktails. Using one of the bar's smart tablet menus, you can choose from more than a dozen cocktails and non-alcoholic beverages. Or you can customize your drink just the way you like it. The brisk angled movements appear almost like a dance, as your order is measured and poured with precision. It's no surprise that the bar quickly became one of the coolest spots in Vegas.
It was easy, and the drinks were very easy to pick. It's simple, actually, and it's cool to watch.
Do you think you'll be coming here again?
Yes. Heck yeah. For sure.
There's more to these robots than meets the eye. At 120 drinks per hour, they can create 2 drinks a minute with impeccable precision. Then where does that place the human bartender? Last year, former presidential candidate Andrew Yang criticized the Tipsy Robot as a case of new technology taking away human jobs. I speak with the bar's owner, who says it's quite the opposite. The bar retains human staff to manage the robots and guide the customers.
He took, unfortunately for him, the wrong example, but we are proud to say that with 2 robotic arms, we created 10 jobs. And just if we do the math, if we open like 10 bars like that, it's 100 jobs created. And robots cannot work without human, at least at our place. And we want to get to keep that human interaction actually with the customers, which is pretty important. It's the robotic bartender today. It's an experience. We're not here to try to take jobs or whatever. We're trying to offer a unique experience to our customers.
Perhaps. But the fact remains he won't be looking for human bartenders anytime soon. This confusion has been spreading throughout Las Vegas, where automation is expected to displace 1 out of 3 jobs, the highest rate among US cities. Hotels have started deploying bots for room service and AI chatbots to help customers and even flirt with them. Robots are also making pizza, some even taking over adult entertainment. This changing work environment is leaving many in Vegas uncertain about their future. The city's Culinary Workers Union has been campaigning to safeguard their livelihoods. They're working with businesses to ensure the robots won't displace their members.
We need to have a language in our contract where we can protect our job. We know technology It's something we cannot stop, but we want to protect our jobs.
The growing role of AI and machines in the workplace is no longer a concern of the future. It is present-day reality in cities like Las Vegas. According to Oxford Economics last year, machines will displace 20 million workers around the world by 2030. Then how can humans learn to work with the changes and turn crisis into an opportunity? I head to the western city of Pittsburgh, hoping to draw some inspiration. These days, it's called Roboburg. The city has in recent years been booming on the back of AI and robotics. Among some 70 firms located along the 3-mile robotics strip, I visit RE Squared, a local firm that develops robotic arms.
We've been helping to save lives and improve quality of life for soldiers overseas who have been having to interface with very dangerous types of devices. So now we're looking at applications in the aerospace industry where people are ergonomically challenged or exposed to very challenging environments. Likewise, the energy industry where people have been put into really harsh environments, performing very dangerous tasks.
Its precise end effectors, or fingers of the robot, are capable of the most delicate movements. From opening locks and zipping up bags, to removing explosives and performing intricate surgeries. These nimble robots are also capable of handling extreme payload. Behind the technology are state-of-the-art imaging sensors and algorithms, allowing the manipulator arms to perceive and adapt to harsh or even volatile environments. And you've managed to slim these robotic arms down to a very small size, and the same goes for the rest of your technology, it seems.
Right.
How did you manage to do that?
It's been through a lot of investment from the U.S. Department of Defense in our research and development of the core technology that builds up our arms. And yeah, you're exactly right. So inside this arm is not only the robotic arm itself, so the muscle and the skeleton, but also the intelligence too. So we've embedded within it the control electronics as well as the power electronics.
The company aims to roll out these technologies to a wider range of industries to benefit human workers.
There's a lot of things, even in 2020, where people are physically, manually conducting very dangerous activities that people frankly shouldn't have to. A benefit, what we've seen, is it's actually improved diversity of workforces in certain scenarios where people can't physically get enough labor to perform more arduous, more manual, ergonomically challenging tasks. Because of the nature of the task, it was very isolated to a specific body type, right? So it kind of eliminates that. So it's opened up, in certain cases, a wider labor pool.
Workers can actually benefit from having smart robots take over mundane or dangerous jobs. Surveys show 6 in 10 workers believe technology could actually free them from doing repetitive menial tasks and even create new opportunities. The potential is limitless.
If you look at the first industrial revolution, there were a lot of jobs that were removed, but we created new jobs. I think a similar process is going to happen when robots start to do things where they can perceive the environment, which is the new revolution that's coming. It's a revolution in perception and decision making.
Building human and robot partnership. That's what Henny Edmoni is aiming to do at Carnegie Mellon University. As with any kind of collaboration, mutual understanding is key to creating synergy. And sometimes that requires picking up on nonverbal cues.
We as humans are expressive, and we have goals, and we have intentions, and we have knowledge. And the robots actually need to respond to all of those internal mental states that we have in order to be effective collaborators or assistants. The challenge is all of those mental states are invisible. You can't read someone's mind, but you can read their behavior, and their behavior is often linked to what's in their mind.
This robot arm is learning to understand human intent by tracking a person's eye gaze.
A robot arm like the one you see here could help you reach for a glass of water or for a bin in your cupboard. And what we're really interested in is, can the robot actually predict what you want before you explicitly ask for it, and then help you retrieve that item?
In this case, the robot learns to figure out which type of chocolates you want. Through a sensor, the arm detects the briefest of eye flickers to make an educated guess before picking up the box.
So why is eye tracking so effective?
That's a fantastic question. Eye tracking is effective because eye gaze is one of the most powerful signals for human intent. So psychologists have known for a long time that our eyes are very tightly linked to what task we're doing. We look at an object before we even start moving our hands to reach for that object. Our eye gaze is used in conversation to indicate when we want to keep talking. And so by doing eye tracking, we're able to do kind of like a little bit of light mind reading.
If a robot predicts incorrectly, I suppose, then do you correct it? Does it learn from that mistake? Or
in this case right now, we're just collecting data, but eventually we'd like to, what we call close the loop, so that the robot would log that as a mistake and update its policy to learn from that.
Through trial and error, this arm is undergoing machine learning to think on its own and respond to different environments without a human's help.
And why is it so important in this day and age for a robot to be able to anticipate your needs?
Yeah. So this kind of robot is actually a commercial product. It's sold for people with severe upper motor impairment as an assistive tool. And as a tool, it's wonderful, but as it's sold, it's teleoperated. So the user has to control the robot themselves. And you can see the paradox where if you need a robot to help you do a physical task, then doing a physical task like controlling a robot is really challenging. So if we could imbue this kind of assistive robot with artificial intelligence to make it predictive the way a caregiver might be, then the robot can kind of take people to the next level and help them achieve tasks more easily.
But of course, developing that sense in robots is no easy task. Not just in terms of predicting our needs, but also moving autonomously.
So this is an example of a robot that's teleoperated. This robot is using a process called inverse kinematics to figure out how it should move all of its linkages, essentially all of these parts and all of these joints, in order to get the end effector, the robot hand, to the position that I'm commanding it to go to with the joystick. So when we move our hand somewhere, we think about where our hand is going to end up. We don't necessarily think, I need to bend my elbow at exactly this angle, or I need to move my shoulder in this way to reach that object. But that's kind of what babies are learning when they flail around and they move around and they grab objects and they throw them away. Something that they're learning is that kind of kinematic structure, is how their bodies respond to different signals. And so this robot has that programmed in. What we're doing with that manipulator robot is the task of saying where the hand has to be is no longer purely the human's responsibility. So here, I have to tell the robot where to go. With that autonomous robot over there, the robot figures out where to go based on the eye gaze, and then uses the same planning process to move itself to that position.
Right, wow.
Knowing how to read between the lines and mapping out their own movements would help robots assist humans almost intuitively. It would also let workers keep their hands free for tasks that require more human touch. The lab is developing the technology primarily for people with limited movement, which would help not only the individual, but their care workers as well.
To replace human caregivers. So I would love if this robot were able to make people more independent, so that when their friends come over, they can have a social conversation or a social meal, instead of having a caregiver have to prepare and feed the individual. So my vision is not to have this robot replace a caregiver, but to have this robot do the tasks that the caregiver doesn't need to do so that they can focus on the more human tasks.
It's more empowering for the individual, definitely.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's really, I think, the wonderful thing about robotics is it can really empower people.
Right.
Louis-Philippe Morenzi is training intelligent systems to pick up human emotion. A remote diagnosis program helps doctors identify signs of mental illness or depression. It uses computer vision to detect key facial indicators.
It's tracking 68 points on your face. 68 points. So around the mouth, about 18. We have the eyebrows, the contour of the eyes. This is to know what is the shape of your face. We use this information to, from that, look at your muscles. What are the changes in your muscles? If you smile, you can see the smile. And then if you're sad, both in your eyebrows and in your lips, the sadness.
I'm very sad. Right
yeah,
now.
very
sad.
Then we're looking over time at your facial expression. And we aggregate this information, and that's how we create those markers. Those markers, what we call behavior markers, they are summary of your behaviors over 5, 10, or 15 minutes.
The AI software also analyzes the patient's words and voice through audio and natural language processing.
In the research, intonation is a marker very important for suicidal ideation. In one of our studies, we look at teenagers with suicidal ideation, and there was a lot of it in the nature of the words. Suicidal teenagers often use first-person pronoun, me, myself, and I. But the most interesting, and what was very interesting, is the quality of the voice was predictive of reattempt.
The solution can highlight critical information doctors may otherwise miss.
So if my goal is to recognize depression, I could have the computer look back at all the data we recorded and tell us which moments were the most useful in predicting changes in depression. So computers could help us find those moments of interest, what's most useful. But humans also have an intuition about it, so we want to have both AI and human working together in finding what's the most interesting.
The idea isn't to replace doctors or their roles in diagnosis. It's to help them save time and make better decisions.
A radiologist has many tasks. One of the tasks is to interact with patients, another task is to look at images and try to make a diagnostic, yet another task is to interact with doctors. So the task that relates to looking at an image and making a diagnostic can perhaps be done by a machine, because that would release time for the radiologists to do other things perhaps better. So this is an example of how the use of artificial intelligence can actually be an empowering tool as opposed to a threat that replaces activities done by people.
There's no full-fledged machine takeover in the workplace just yet. But as cities around the world start to lose traditional jobs, they are looking for ways to reinvent their industrial landscape. And many are looking to places like Pittsburgh, where robots and AI have actually created jobs across a wide range of sectors. Hard to believe, 40 years ago, this city was turning into a ghost town. Once a booming hub of the steel industry, Pittsburgh was seeing factories close and jobs disappear as production drastically declined. Veteran Larry Samar was one of the people who left.
There was a lot of anxiety from people. The steel mills were closing down because they were getting steel cheaper overseas, and the unions were falling apart. So everyone decided, mostly in the late 70s, early 80s, a mass exodus, and they took off from Pittsburgh to live other places.
When he returned a few years back, he was amazed by the transformation. From Steel City to Roboburg, Pittsburgh is now considered the robotics capital of the world. It's home to scores of AI startups, tech powerhouses like Uber and Amazon, as well as leading academics at Carnegie Mellon University. Through that robust ecosystem, the latest research is developed, tested, and applied in the market, driving innovation in the region. This has created thousands of new jobs in recent years. According to an annual investment scorecard, IT and robotics jobs are leading employment growth, seeing a 30% on-year increase in 2018. Tech jobs also have a large multiplier effect, directly and indirectly supporting almost 3 other jobs. Wages are also higher, with tech and robotics employees earning almost double the region's average wage of $53,000 as of 2018.
Manufacturing, retail, finance, healthcare, life sciences, all of these areas, we're seeing investments here where they're really part of 2 or 3 different sectors, and they find that intersection here in Pittsburgh.
The success story doesn't have to be unique to Pittsburgh. By working with the changes, it's possible to reap greater productivity, profit, and create thousands of new jobs anywhere. In fact, the World Economic Forum predicts as many as 133 million jobs will emerge with the growing role of AI and robotics. But societies must be well prepared for the future of working with machines.
It shouldn't have to be a theoretical exercise or theoretical discussion. We need people to be exposed to the technologies, to play around with the technologies, interact with the technologies, and get to know how these technologies work. At the same time, these technologies on the other end are also intelligent beings in the making and want to learn more about how human beings work and think and behave.
Workers with higher risk of displacement need access to sturdy social safety nets, as well as opportunities to sharpen their skill sets.
I think that people will see very rapidly this displacement start to happen in about 5 years. So I think there will be a lot more pressure on governments to move once people start seeing jobs displaced. Because ultimately, the economic incentive to displace people is going to be unlike anything we've seen since the last Industrial Revolution. Like, human salary demands are not competitive with the cost of electricity and maintenance. Ultimately, we can't keep up with the robots. We will be outpaced. So we need to start asking our legislators to put in place regulations that help control that.
It's not just the government. Businesses need to explore ways to retrain workers instead of simply replacing them with machines.
There is a corporate social responsibility amongst all businesses to do the right thing. And once again, it's always about people. If it was about machines, then I think we wouldn't need people anymore. And we need people for a whole range of reasons. So businesses need to keep that in mind.
It's inevitable. AI and robotics, changing the role of human workers, industries, jobs and lives. But during my time in the US, it became clear that shaping these changes for better or for worse, that's something we can control. It's in our hands.